pop up. Hi everyone, that's the health and safety measures of you welcome to Nova Masters for your first year. I wanted to basically introduce myself. I'm Michael Parks. I'm CEO and co-founder for a startup called BIOS. We have hijacked a basement area in the building over here and put a greenhouse in there. So this year we are working on really starting to explore what it takes to build a sustainable social food business. However, today I wanted to talk to you about who counts in sustainability. And that leads us down many ways, but I thought we would stay on the simple topic of keeping it about people, planet and profit. So now this is the moment I'll take a breath. Everyone's here. You are about to start on your new year. I'm sure you have very, very different understandings of what sustainability might mean and ideas about who counts what in that. So what I want to do first is just invite everyone to start a conversation with yourself, because I'm sure as you think about sustainability and specifically about people, planet and profit, what is it that comes to mind? What have you been told? I'm not asking you to talk to me about this. I just want you to slow down and think about sustainability from a perspective of, if you were to take a moment, think about sustainability as if you've read it in your media. You might have read it about your modules coming to Nova SBE. You may have seen stuff online. If you've been alive in the last 2 decades, you would have been certainly programmed with a lot of information about sustainability. So I want to invite you just to be curious about what you think about sustainability now, okay? So then I can talk at you for a bit, and then I'll get you to ask some questions, and then I'll share a little bit of my personal story, and then I will invite you to apply for a program. So that's what we're going to do for the next 30 minutes. Great. So for the next 30 minutes, I am going to explore and start a conversation with you about who counts what in sustainability. And in that, there's 2 or 3 ways we can think about who counts in sustainability, because am I talking about people? You're all people, I'm a person. Do we count? Who do we count? When we think about the planet, who counts in the planet? Who counts what in the planet? And then when we think about profit, the next question is who counts what in profit? So I really wanted to take an opportunity to simplify this, because you're going to hear that there's a few problems with profit in this simplified version, and you may see in some of your classes they try to replace it a little bit with prosper. However, not to confuse things today, I want to keep it simple, and I want to keep it simple in a way that allows us to find a common understanding about what each of these words actually mean. We're all coming to start a new year. We're all here to start to learn something new. Many of you are coming from different cultural backgrounds. You've all had different experiences to make sure that you could get here today. We can't assume that we all have the same experiences around our education, and therefore we can't assume that everyone has the same understanding of what these words might mean for sustainability. So I want to start with people. That's you, everyone here. And I want you to, first of all, turn to the person left of you, and I would like you to engage in a quick question back and forth. And the question isn't complex, and it's not the definition. I want you to genuinely think about your answer for the other person. So the question is, what does people mean to them? So I'd like you to turn to the person left. If you have no one to your left, you might have to do a circle and find someone behind you. So let's see. But I want to give everyone a couple of minutes just to ask this question of each other back and forth. What does people mean to you in sustainability? Good. Count is good. I can manage the time now. Perfect. We'll do that after. Just talk to themselves, and then I'll. Okay, so it's sort of like a minute and a half. You could take longer, but everyone's chatting now, so let's give them a bit more. Okay, so we're going to do this again, and then we're going to do this again, because obviously there's 2 more words to go. But to start with, I thought people's the most important. Why? Because, you know, we are living in 2021, and there's certainly something about how important an individual is and what is our relationship to the whole. But I am just going to get on a little bit of my word nerd, because I want to see how different your conversations were from the origins of where the word people comes from. So I like etymology. I like to know where origins of words come from, because this allows us to get a common understanding that actually from our cross cultures, some of these English words still have origins across our different cultural upbringings as well. So one thing I like about this one, obviously humans, persons, anyone different on anything on here? I'm actually curious to ask first. Hands up, did anyone get a different response to something that's here about what people might mean? Great. Okay. I didn't hear you, but I'm going to pretend that I did, and that's because there's a lot of people between you and I in the moment. But we can have a question come back later. Because what I wanted to really do is that actually we got stuck in a noun, because people is also a verb. In the sense of that we're not static, obviously, but when we really think about these 2 definitions and we look at it from a verb perspective, this is when we start to say, well, actually, people are also considered inhabitants. So we're all persons in a location inhabiting this place as people. So then we think about who counts in sustainability in relation to people. I guess it means us, to some extent, is the link we can see. The other thing I really like about the noun one is simply a meaning, a body of persons comprising of community. So there's something about the essence of what that means for us as people. Great. So we're all people. We're in a room, in a location. Guess what? We're on a planet. So now we're up to planet. And I want to take a little bit of a look here just to do it a little bit differently. I'm not going to get you to talk, but I want to go for the silent approach and ask you to just take a moment to yourself and think about what planet means to you in relation to sustainability. So if you're device-driven, use your device. If you'd like to close your eyes, close your eyes. But I really just want to give everyone a minute to think about, in the context of sustainability, what does planet mean? What do you know about planet? Because planet's not planets, so there's a few ways that we can explore this. So I'm just going to give you a quick minute now just to have a think about to yourself, and however you want to process that. What does planet mean to you? Coolest part about planet is I still tried to find the best Earth picture from outside, couldn't find any Hubble scope stuff. This one's from 1972 from the Apollo 17 mission, FYI. Planets. So I'm going to do word nerd. Now, who here actually thought about the other planets, that there might be more than one? Oh, great. Is anyone here wanting to work on the sustainability of Mars or Venus or anywhere other than Earth? Great. So one thing that I really went into with the definitions for planet is that I thought it was very interesting that the origins of the words aren't about a fixed and or major planet. Because it's actually about, from an astronomy external perspective, of watching things move through the sky and to see how they wandered across time. This idea of wandering stars in a word I thought was very interesting, because when we talk about sustainability and we talk about planets, obviously we're talking about Earth. But in that sense, it is still connected as part of a bigger, systemic, interconnected universe. And then I read my notes and I work out I'm saying things that I didn't plan on saying. So next, guess what this pitch is for? Profit. So this one's one of the ones that I really feel like we've made a lot of assumptions about when we see people, planet and profit from a sustainability perspective. Because you're all starting now at Nova School of Business and Economics. That means we're going to be looking at profit margins, we're going to be looking at profit shares. So there's this loading of a language, of a word, that has multiple meanings. And when we talk about it in relation to sustainability, I'm going to get you to be curious again, and this time of the person on your right. On your right. So I want you to just take a moment to talk to the person on your right, and I want you to ask them, what does profit mean to them? So we can have another couple of minutes of talking, but in this question I really just want you to take a chance to work on what could profit mean and or what it means to you, beyond making money. What does profit mean to you, them being the other? And again, if you go right around the other way, you're bound to find someone. What does profit mean to the person next to you? Tradition. I think it's colour, it's Jingming, it's profit. So just take one more minute or slowly finish your thoughts. Okay. Okay, so how did you go with this one? I'm back on the boring white screen again. That means I'd like your attention. Before we do the words, I would this time just want to say, I bet you guys found you were having different conversations. So what does profit mean? Where do we start to really see it? So I just want to see if there was anyone who had an interesting difference in your conversation about profit. If you just put your hand up, and I'll happily get a microphone to you this time. Yeah, great. So what was the difference is the question that you noticed between your conversation?
Yeah. And then we were not sure. First, we discussed at a more narrow perspective. Like, obviously, we're in a business school, so we talked about like money and so on. But then we like discussed it in a more broader way and thought like more about like benefit. So we can also like profit from each other without gaining money. So we can gain experience where we can like have a benefit from, or also planet or people can have profit without actually having like more money in their account or something. So those are the two different sides we thought about it.
Good, thank you. So this is what I thought, that's exactly the point, because in our modern era we talk about profit, and the profit is about exchange. However, there's something in the origin of this word that gives us a bit more bandwidth for sustainability than I really think most people think. So, why do I say that? I say that because the thing when I dug into the origins of this word is the context of, income derives from an office, it's from property or our transactions. I mean, don't tell me your whole life hasn't been transactionalized in 2021. But what seems to be diminishing is this question of who benefits what. So then there's this idea of insustainability about benefit. But the thing I really was the spiritual benefit, which is what I thought was very interesting around what's useful or not useful. Because when we look at the verb for this word, we can see it is primarily driven towards benefit and gain. So when we think about profit being useful or helpful in sustainability, it does keep bringing me back to this question of who counts. Because, we are all born and living in different cultural perspectives, and I guess what I'm trying to tempt you with in our conversation today is how to be curious about those differences. Because when we talk about the meaning of ideas or words, we're often influenced by the environments that we have been raised, educated, the political environment that we're in, as well as the entertainment that we choose. So where does this come from, and how do they influence our view of these types of words? Because it's these perspectives of people, planet or profit, and more importantly, who counts in sustainability, that is worth being curious about. Because we do come from many different cultures, we do come from many different perspectives. And the key thing I think I've found over this time when we talk about these concepts is that there's a lot of complexity. Things are very complex, and you're going to learn a whole heap of stuff about carbon accounting, greenhouse gas frameworks, ESGs, SDGs, it just goes on. So you're going to learn a lot about that. But today I wanted to talk around how do I share a bit of a story about myself across each of these domains that might allow you to think about what sustainability looks like within your lives as well. So, people, planet and profit. I'm going to share a little bit of a story about me because I am a person, and then I thought what would be helpful is to tell you something about when I was roughly about your age. I have been leading teams since I was 17 years old, everything from food crews in McDonald's to whole call centres to whole restaurants to large end transformation projects in India. So I've worked in a lot of places. What I want to share with you though is, meet Michael. He's 26 years old. Obviously had no idea about health and wellness at that point in time and loved a beer. So that gives you an insight that yes, I am Australian. I'm from Western Australia originally. And I have been working since I was 16 years old. I didn't really get into academia or start to study anything until I was 30. So for me, this part of my world was, I was like, great, I'm doing everything I'm meant to, peak of profit in my life. And it was sustainable, and I was able to make all the choices that I wanted. However, I had no idea that there was a planet. other than destinations to go for a trip to. And I certainly had no idea about what it might mean to be a sustainable human, let alone how to be sustainable in my own health and wellness, because that's all about choice. So obviously, I may or may not have transformed a few things since then. But what I wanted to share with you as part of the people experience for me is 3 things about what counts. What counts for people is health, plant-based diets, social cohesion, purpose-filled work, encounters with nature, movement, community. This is what counts for humans. This is what counts for people. In my experience of where I am now in relation to sharing this little bit of a story around sustainability. So, planet. I started on this before. I ended up in corporate career. I really saw a lot about what does industry do. And I can see that one of the major challenges for us now is that we're dealing with the impacts of industry. And this allowed me to see that, okay, I can be in a corporate career and then I needed to go and study things. So I fell in love with food, the food system. And then I fell in love with energy because, well, really, all of the Earth's energy is about food that gives us energy. So if anyone's got a circular mind, you'll get my point there. So it is all about food. And how do we have a body that allows us to clear toxins and pollutants, etc., to be healthy and strong and do this purposeful work? And how do we live in environments in this planet that aren't polluted with toxins, poisons, by these challenges that face the Earth? So when I think about planet and the message I would like to share with you about what counts for the planet is that we might be thinking about the frameworks around what the world tells us to think about with planet. However, what the Earth actually cares about is waste, but not waste in the sense of, oh, I need to use this last little bit of my salad to make sure I'm not throwing out rubbish. Waste as in industrial waste, leachant processes at the end of supply chains that lead to pollutants in the environments, lead to toxins, lead to poisons, and ultimately land degradation. Because that's what the planet is here, that's why we're here. So for me, there's something about what counts for the planet. It relates to really waste in the sense of toxins and pollutants, because if they enter the environment, guess what? They enter us. And then they go back in the environment again. Right, so there's my little bit of a fun past history to now. I want to now just share a little bit about what I'm doing here in Lisbon, and this is linked to the profit part. So this is my team. This is that greenhouse I was talking about downstairs over there. We've got the social part sorted. We care about the humans. We know we're going to grow a leafy, green, nutritious product that we can service locally here. Great. We know we've got the planet sorted. We've got life cycle assessment. We know how we're going to measure the data, the impact. We know how we're going to close the loop on the food. Awesome. Problem is, we're going to make money. So now this profit element. So the real challenge that we are doing is we are taking on an ambitious purpose, which is about how so Bios's purpose is to integrate nature with technology to create healthy living spaces for community and commerce, because there's many benefits that can come from integrating technology with plants and buildings where you might be breathing oxygen and creating CO2. There's many layers. I could talk for hours on it. Ambitious is that purpose, is my point. The key challenge and the great opportunity for Bios to be here at Nova is that we're actually getting to test how do we make this type of vertical farming economically sustainable as well. And you'll notice that this is the first time I've used the word economics in relation to profit, because we know that the profit we can bring already to the community is social. I'm here giving impact now because of this project. There's a benefit here. There's many layers, but the key thing that we get to work on as part of being at a business school is making the business make money. So that's really where I wanted to loop up, because then I'm remembering there's another slide after that one. Back on the profit. So what counts? Okay, what counts? Money, water, energy, and food. So when we think about profit, that's what is being counted. We count money, we count water, we count energy, and we count food. Finally, in what you're going to learn is how you turn all of those things into a carbon equivalency through multiple equations and complex modelling, which takes us a long way away from the real benefit of sustainability. So I guess I'm being a little bit provocative for you because you are going to learn all the technical stuff here. What I'm offering is just how can we be curious about what it really means. So I want to just do a little bit of a recap and open up for questions to see what questions you have. We can have, I'm checking my time, but we've got probably 5 or 10 minutes, and then I've got a slide left at the end to talk to you. So I really just want to engage with you now, engage with each other if you want. But what questions would you have? What's been something that you've thought about with relation to who counts in sustainability? How is that different or the same as what you were thinking of before? And then we just wait quietly. And if there is no questions, it means I get a coffee sooner than I was expecting. So, but I don't mind that. But I'm genuinely interested. So do you have questions? Because we've covered a few different domains. I'm sure you're thinking about different things. But if you don't, that's also cool. That's always a very good sign or a very bad sign.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Actually, I wanted to ask your thoughts about the luxury industry and like the copycats, because I used to be a lawyer in intellectual property, but in the fashion law.
Yep.
And how does it work for you? Because there is like a dual thought about like getting things because just for like people who have money.
Yep.
And like the copycats, but this is not good like for the environment, etc. So I just wanted to know your thoughts about this.
Yeah, luxury industry products. They're a great one for who counts in sustainability because for planet as well because the pollutants. So when we say luxury products, it's interesting because if you're, just to clarify one little bit, you're talking about you're also, from legal, you're also working on some of the copycat nature of that. Look, as people, we choose what we spend our money on, first point. Like, if you want to buy luxury stuff and or you want to buy copycat stuff, great, that's your choice. Just spend your resources how you want. But no, two things. They probably come from the same manufacturing location. Not often, but often. And if not, they come from somewhere else in a whole other part of the world that has a whole different fair trade and approach to their production and manufacturing cycles. I mean, when I was in India and watching how they do textiles, it's hideous. What goes into the water, the toxins they use, but that's only one very small demographic in materials, and then I saw another one in leather. Again, very, 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 very awful to think about that people also live and water their agriculture off those rivers. So for me, in thinking about the impact from a planet point of view, a person perspective is we have choices about those things. Because I really still believe as people, the best thing that we can do is collectively choose to support the companies that are not just greenwashing, that are actually taking action that you can see in your local environments that impacts your family, your friends, your communities. Because I think textiles, clothing, there's a couple of great startups here in sustainable products for clothes and fashion, and they're doing great things. And that only happens because we are still dealing with the high-end volume from a luxury product perspective. It's sort of it's not really my area, but that it still has a direct impact on the earth. But I guess the key thing I would pick up, it's the same for food. Luxury products is not something that we buy all the time. Something we do buy all the time is food. So which companies do we support in what food we buy and why we buy that? Is it clean food? You know, do we know what's in it? Do we know how the people have worked to produce that food? Do we know how the food is processed at the back end? So there's many layers for us here, and I think depending on your areas of expertise this year, you'll start to be able to apply some of that thinking.
So you were saying or telling very much about it's people's choice and what they support. And if you do surveys, often many people say, okay, sustainability is very important to me, but in the end, we don't have many sustainable products. I think it's getting a bit more. Do you think it's because in the end it doesn't really matter to people, and how you're going to, and if so, how are you going to change that, or what is the problem with that?
You know, the thing you made me think about was actually how much our decision-making processes have been hijacked to some extent. Because the idea of making a choice about what I choose to do and look for sustainable products, as an example. We don't have to use our money to pay for sustainable products. We can use our money to pay to companies that actually have products that are less bad than the other at the moment. So I just wanted to start there first, because then the other side of it is how has our devices are driving our own individual choices more than we know that we're making those choices. And then we're getting into psychological processing and constructs around how we are learning to take behaviour and whether we're conscious of our agency to choose to buy, or whether I've been bombarded with 3 or 4 ads or 3 people saying X and then Y, and then all of a sudden I have to buy those shoes. Food's my best example. I haven't spent money with McDonald's in 12 years, 15 years. My cash, my choice around that. Why? Because you know, they employ people, they're good for community, but they obviously employ, it's not considered slave labour, but as long as they're, you know, between 13 and 16, you can pay them €4 or $5 in Australia an hour. That's fine. And the rubbish they produce, the waste, the supply chains. So there's an example that in my choices, I choose to, in food is one of those areas where I do make those sorts of choices. So I think we do have choice, but if we're looking for the perfect company that's super sustainable, that's hyper people, planet and profit, they don't exist. It doesn't exist. So if we're waiting for those perfect products, it's more about what do you do with your choices now is my simple.
I'm wondering, do you see the solution for the world or us becoming more sustainable in new companies being founded, or the ones that are already existing being turned into more sustainable companies? Because I feel like that's something that there are so many companies now that are being founded, but then the ones that are bad do still exist. What is your thought on that?
My thought on that is I feel like long ago I was programmed about good and bad. That's what I'll just say. But actually, these companies have existed for 100, 150, 200 years, 300 years. So it takes us a capacity to have a historical understanding of the pattern of industry and what goes on with these companies and how they transform based on what's happening in the world now, and then how they transform again based on what's happening now. And that's super difficult in comparison to new companies that are coming through. So so right now is different to 10 years ago or even 5 years ago with new companies, because the money's dried up more. So even from my company perspective for investment, access to sustainability, working in impact, etc., there's gaps that still are funding, looking for old paradigm outcomes under the banner of new things. And often that is driving innovation in external to the companies, rather than the companies have to innovate internally. So often what you will see happen now specifically is these new companies will get created and then they get gobbled. And then they get created and then they get gobbled. So that's by the older companies. So there is this, we are in this cyclical nature, and I feel like even evolutionarily from our last 200 years, we are at another pattern again. You can go and do some research on what happened between the wars in 1920s to 1940s in your countries. You'll see some interesting patterns about companies. The other answer, and then this is linking with, you set me up well for my next slide, because I did the key thing here around what matters, because who counts in sustainability? All these companies are now starting to count. And what are they counting? They're counting what I put on the profit slide: money, water, air, and food and energy. They turn it into a carbon equivalency, and this is what they count. What counts for me with sustainability and where we are is we have data. The data exists, data on toxins, data on pollutants, data on full life cycle of products, data on the socioeconomic differences in locations, data on the accessibility of different luxury products versus different, this data, we have this data. So for us to really be able to work with companies, and then we want to partner with, if we want to create companies in the future, if you want to find jobs in sustainability in the future, who's working with real data? So who counts in sustainability in my mind? Obviously us, the planet. And from a profit point of view, I think it does count that we all benefit. The planet benefits, people benefit from profit in sustainability. But where we are now is we have data that can tell us across each of those domains what's really happening without having to put it into a framework to turn it into something else. So if you are starting to work about what companies you want to work with or partner or intern with, or these options are available to you, the key thing I would say is which ones work with transparent data. That can often guide you. Who tells you, it might not be a great story, but there's great food companies out there, so they're not saying we're doing fully biodegradable packaging, etc. But they say this is the life cycle of our food and this is what goes into it. That then gives you a choice to say, well, I pay this, I'm paying for all of that, versus I pay this and all I'm buying is this shiny advert. So there's differences around data and the information, and that's really the differentiator for BIOS too. So for what we're doing, transparent agriculture, you will know exactly what water, exactly what nutrients went into this product that you buy from us. So, and this is going to be the differentiator around sustainability in the future for sure. Yeah. Great. So I think we're getting close to time at least. 3, 4. Great, now I need to sell you something. Not really. I want you to come and participate in a program we're doing. So we've had some funding that has been supported with edX and EIT. And what we're doing is that we're launching a social food enterprise program later this year. We're starting to do pre-registration. So we want to work with between 10 and 30 people to participate in a process that will be a couple of taught modules online, and then we'll do a 3 or 4 day face-to-face on site. And then we'll do another couple of online sessions, which is all about how do we form small working groups to explore what it means to take a sustainable role in 2021. What does sustainability mean? But more importantly, we're going to give you 2 or 3 social food challenges. So how that we can then turn them into a sustainable business model. So one of the challenges will be offered by BIOS, our challenge that we're facing, and then there'll be 2 more that we are just working with the community here to see what we can discover as those challenges, because the key thing out of all of this is people, planet, profit. And if we can't get all 3 of those right by using the triple, I can never remember the triple bottom line business model canvas, that one, without being able to apply those types of tools, we don't know whether or not our ideas are going to be any good and whether or not they're going to fit to market. So really I want to invite you, if you are interested, you have time, obviously you have your own academic things to sort out as well. If you're interested, just take a picture of that and then make contact with us, and then we'll put you on our list to get you involved. It won't be a paid program for the students here, it'll be something that we just work with you directly on. And it's really adult learning driven, it's not didactic textbooks. Let's have some conversations, let's go out into the community, let's test some ideas and get some feedback. So that's more what I wanted to, this was my profit from our session today with you people on this planet. So thank you, that's really my wrap, I'm out.